Was Miss Universe India that nexus event for you which changed everything?
That one night that I won was a journey of 5 to 6 failures. And that's when I cracked the code. That a winner is only a failure who tried one more time. परवाह नहीं परवाज़ को कि पर काट लेगा कोई. परवाह नहीं परवाज़ को कि पर काट लेगा कोई, क्योंकि हम परों से नहीं हौसलों से उड़ा करते. So I honestly don't think that anything can stop you from winning if you take that one last chance of trying.
Do you feel like our modern society has really ruined that grief experience because there's so many distractions?
Every individual has a different timeline of dealing with grief. And until we sit with it, I'm not saying like smoke, drink, party, get another opportunity, move on to someone else. Not that. Until you sit with your grief, it is never going to let you go. You don't let go of grief. Grief lets you go.
I feel like it's sort of an inhibition where they feel like, how will people judge me if I go? Like, what will people say if they find out that, I'm going to therapy?
It doesn't matter. You could be the most successful person, but you could be battling with anxiety and depression. And it's like the fever and cough and cold of physical health. So people don't understand that it's just very basic. It needs help.
Guys, I have an amazing podcast for you tonight with Ushoshi Sengupta. She was Miss Universe India. We talk about a lot of things, including her life after the crown. And we have a great conversation about mental health. If you're someone who seeks mental health, I think this is a podcast for you to watch. Go ahead and give me your feedback. Ushoshi, welcome to Infinite Health. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me over. I have been watching the podcast and it's incredible what you guys are doing and I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. One of the reasons I wanted to call you because I feel like your journey is very inspirational. And just to jump right in, how did Miss Universe India change your life?
Honestly, I remember growing up wanting to be Miss India. I never wanted to be a model, to be very honest. I always wanted to be Miss India because I came from a defense background. So I thought it was very patriotic to be able to represent your country and just to be on an international platform where you are known as your country. It kind of felt like Olympics to me, and it felt like my way of doing it. So I always grew up wanting to be Miss India, and I had prepared for it. I worked super hard for it. And then the day I remember I won Miss India, for me that night was very, very important because before that day I was nobody. And then the next morning when I woke up, I was suddenly somebody very important because everybody wanted to know where I come from, what have I studied, who are my friends. They wanted to know how my parents feel. So I realized that my life had changed. I was a part of the history of the country that's as divine and as important as the history of the world. And I know that representing India was not very easy. You come from a country which has so many years of history, culture, so many different languages. And I knew that it was an honor that was not given to everyone and I had to work hard for it. So, I remember waking up that morning and I had my crown in front of me and suddenly I was moved to a suite from one of the regular rooms and I had 2 bodyguards and I had an entourage who was telling me what to wear, what to eat, how to dress up, how to talk. And I was meeting some of the most important people across the world and I was talking about how great India is. I don't think, there can be a life-changing moment than this.
But where does this patriotism come from? Was it instilled by your family?
Absolutely. In fact, you won't believe my winning question at Miss India was, what does patriotism mean to you? And it is so unreal that even 14 years later, people still tag me on these videos and, they still talk about my answer. And I've met so many people who have stopped me at airports, at restaurants, and they're like, we remember your answer on patriotism. And I don't think that I was the most beautiful girl on the platform that night.
I disagree, but go on.
But I truly believe that I I worked hard the most. Like, I was the most hardworking on that platform that night. And I also believe that there was a stroke of luck because my question was on patriotism, and my father was in front of me because my father worked in the Indian Air Force, and I grew up as a defense kid. And my answer to my question was, because I have a father who's worked for the country where, people, my father works hard so that everybody in the country can have a peaceful sleep at night. I think that's what defines patriotism, to be able to feel proud of who you are and where you come from, whether it's your movies, whether it's your cinema, whether it's your music, or even sports. I think every time that sense of patriotism comes when we see our country winning. And it only happened because I grew up as a defense kid, and growing up, I've seen my father religiously waking up 6 o'clock in the morning, putting up his uniform, and going to work and serving the country. And I have always been a very proud daughter because my father worked with the Indian Air Force, and I always wanted to be like him. I think that's what I have grown up, and even today, I think I really thrive on the validation that I get from my father, because he's been my hero. And growing up in a space where you watch your primary caretaker, the fact that my father would always say that to be able to serve your country, you have to be selfless. You see people in the armed forces, they're not driven by money. They don't join the Indian Air Force or Indian Army because they want to make a lot of money. There is a purpose that is higher than them. And I think that's the purpose I grew up, or I've grown up watching. And I think that's what made me want to represent my country, or even be able to talk about my country with so much pride.
So, what I'm really getting from your conversation is that, there's a sense of discipline that's been inculcated in you since you were very young. But what I really want to ask is, does that sense of discipline also create a sense of self-awareness of who you are? Because, you're in a public platform and there are, sometimes you get isolated, sometimes it gets lonely, not sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, so many times it gets lonely. So do you feel like you're as self-aware because of that sense of discipline?
See, honestly, I'll tell you, I won Miss India when I was 21. I started my modeling career when I was 18. I happened to win a pageant in Calcutta. Then I went on to Bombay and I won Miss India. So when you're 21, I don't think you are really that self-aware. My life was very different from a regular 21-year-old's life. I traveled to some 22, 23 countries. I was meeting some very important people, the travel minister or the president or the prime ministers of those countries. And we were talking about the causes that are
global issues,
or the causes that Miss Universe India franchisee was supporting at that time. And so my work revolved around creating awareness for HIV/AIDS, which I will definitely talk about later. So for a 21-year-old, it was a lot happening in my life. I, of course, wanted to go out and party with my friends, and because I had just got so much popularity and fame, I wanted to just live it up. But I think you only understand this with experience, and it only comes to you with your spiritual growth, which is the journey of the last 14 years. So I won't say that I was self-aware the moment I won the pageant. Of course not. If I can go back, I would do certain things differently now. But I think I did my best, whatever I knew at that point of time. So if you ask me about how self-aware I was when I was 21, I did my best I could have at 21. But in my 30s, of course, there's much more experience, there's much more knowledge, and there is much more awareness. So it's different.
Just a feedback. I mean, you seem very self-aware now. So I think that's brilliant.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of Marvel movies. And, there is this concept in Marvel called the Nexus event, which completely changes everything. If you've seen Infinity War, it changed everything.
Yeah.
So, was Miss Universe India that Nexus event for you, which changed everything? Because how did you grow after that? Like, how did it change your life?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even when I look back now, I always feel that was the most important and essential moment in my life because it suddenly made me very responsible. I was careful about what I say, how I behave, and there was a team of people who were working around me to make me look like that because I know whatever I was doing was aspirational to young girls across the country. And I remember, I used to get a lot of emails, mails, and messages from a lot of young girls who wanted to be Miss India. So I knew that I wanted to create a legacy that young girls would want to follow. And I have honestly not thought about or prepared my career in the last 14 years. I have gone after opportunities that have come to me and I've made the most of it. If you ask me if I was completely ready for those opportunities, maybe not. But whether I took it up, yes, I did. I failed more than I have succeeded. I have not won 5 pageants before I won Miss India. And every failure has led me to take up the next opportunity with a lot more commitment. And I think that's what I have learned from my winning of Miss India. Because that one night that I won was a journey of 5 to 6 failures. And that's when I cracked the code that a winner is only a failure who tried one more time. So
Yeah.
every time I have been thrown an opportunity and I don't know and I've failed, and I've been like, okay, if I tried one more time, I'm going to win. And there was this line that I used to always follow, and I had like it pasted in front of my study table. It said that परवाह नहीं परवाज को कि पर काट लेगा कोई, परवाह नहीं परवाज को कि पर काट लेगा कोई, क्योंकि हम परों से नहीं हौसलों से उड़ा करते हैं.
Wow.
So I honestly don't think that anything can stop you from winning if you take that one last chance of trying.
I think there's something that I would want to share. And because I also feel that sometimes winning something so big also creates a burden in the sense that you set a benchmark high for yourself. I don't know if most people know this, but so I was Mr. Personality India. Like this was way back, like when I was maybe in class 10 or 11. And I don't know why, like, I really resonate with what you were saying because it sort of created this sense of, oh, now that I've won this, I need to maintain this. And it creates a sense of a burden. It at least did for me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, oh, if I don't do this, I failed. So was that also something that became a part of your life?
Oh, absolutely. I have had the fear of failure more than anybody can expect that from me. I would go on stage and I would be like, what if these people know that I have this insane fear of failure? So eventually I started, there was so much expectation out of me that why didn't you do movies? Why didn't you go to New York? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And I think those expectations are always there. Once you achieve something, expectations are always going to be there. But I think it was more about a journey, like a self-awareness journey, where I realized that what are my dreams for myself is more important than what are others' dreams for me.
That's a really super advice because I was just coming to that. Like, there's so many women who want to be where you are right now. But how practical do you think that is? Do you think in some ways you lucked out? Because it's so easy to fall into that category where you feel, of course, hard work is there, determination is there. And do you feel like if someone came to you and said that, I want to win Miss Universe India, or go on to the global platform, like how practical would you be in giving them that advice?
I grew up idolizing Sushmita Sen. So I used to cut and collect all her pictures. It came out in a newspaper, magazine. I would just cut it and stick it in my diary. In 2010, when I went for Miss India, Sushmita Sen was my mentor. I walked into the audition, and the first thing I see was Sushmita Sen sitting there. And I realized that I manifested her in my life. It's like, say, if you want to become a cricketer and Sachin comes to you and says that I'll teach you how to bat. It was a moment like that for me. What uh, advice I give to young girls who want to be where, in an international platform or have the journey that I have had, is that there is no substitute to hard work and commitment. And commitment is not something you can have in one place of your life. A committed person is a committed person in all phases of his life.
Right.
If you are not committed to your relationships, you cannot be committed to your professional goals. If you're not committed to your professional goals, you'll never be committed to your family. Commitment is a characteristic. If you have it, you have it.
Right.
And only those who win in life are committed to that goal and to dream, because passion is something all of us have, but the persistence to passion is something most of the people don't have.
Right.
So it's about waking up with that persistence. There will always be somebody smarter, prettier, more, intelligent. But I feel the one who wins is always the one who wanted it the most and who persisted the most and who worked hard the most. And that's what my story has been. I mean, I can only answer from my journey, and that's what I feel.
Something I really wanted to talk about is the small short film that you've made, Unbroken.
Yes.
I thought that was such a beautiful movie. I saw that so many times and I sent it to so many people. So tell me something about it.
So Unbroken, it's one of my first project as a producer for a short film, kind of like a content. Although I've been producing many events before, but it's primarily been into fashion, which has been my forte. Unbroken is very special because I collaborated with my friend Oyon Sheel, who's the director of Unbroken. He's also written and directed it. I think me and Oyon both, we were very close friends. So we were at one point talking about how we are not allowed to share the experiences of grief. And grief is such an understated emotion. I think most of our mental health issues stem from grief, whether it's sadness or it's anger or it's frustration. All of it, the root cause of it is always grief. We don't understand grief, I think, in our society. We don't have the opportunity, or we don't give anybody the space to understand grief. We feel that, in fact, as a society, we also say that, come on, get over it, It's okay, you've just lost your dog, get over it. It's okay, everybody loses their parent, get over it. It's okay to go through a divorce, just get over it. People don't understand that every individual has a different timeline of dealing with grief. And until we sit with it, I'm not saying not like smoke, drink, party, get another opportunity, move on to someone else. Not that. Until you sit with your grief, it is never going to let you go. You don't let go of grief. Grief lets you go.
But how difficult is that? Because I'm just thinking about the things you said, and so many of them apply to me also. So how do you let go of that? How do you start living above it?
You can never let go of grief. You just get better in dealing with it. If you have lost a parent, and even 7 years later, when you revisit that memory, you will feel the same amount of pain. It can never get better. You can never get over losing a loved one, whether it's a friend, family, pet, anything, You never get over losing anybody, especially if you love them. You only get better at dealing with it. So every time grief visits you, you have to sit with it. You have to let yourself feel it. And you have to tell yourself that this is going to get better. And, as Unbroken, that's the message that we wanted to pass, that sometimes you will be able to sit with it yourself, and sometimes you need a little help. So sometimes you can sit and cry by yourself, and sometimes you need a friend who says, it's going to get better. I'm sitting right next to you. Just go through this.
But do you feel like our modern society has really ruined that grief experience, because there's so many distractions, there's so many outlets where, loneliness has been declared as a pandemic by the WHO?
Absolutely. I think that today's generation, most of us are so lonely. We don't have understanding of how to deal with relationships, and I think that's what is making us more lonely, because we feel we are in an age of Tinder and Bumble, and I mean, don't have anything against these dating apps. They are great to find partners, but also the every technology has its pros and cons. I think the disadvantage of it is that we don't want to sit with our our loss of not having a relationship. We don't want to work on it. We just want to move on to the next possible opportunity. So my parents are childhood sweethearts. Once I asked my mom that how have you lived like 40 years with dad and you've never got bored of him, and she always says that in our time we never had Facebook, Instagram, so it was okay for us to not know and be in their space all the time. But today we want to know what our partner is doing all the time. And if it doesn't go with if it doesn't work with what works with us, it's easy for us to let go. The idea of staying and solving a problem is something that our parents used to do. Our generation is easy to not solve that and move on to the next. But relationships can only work out if two people are ready to sit down and work on the solution of the problem. And I think loneliness only comes because we expect that there is something better in the future and we might not get that. So we are okay to let go of what we have right now. If you look at the family dynamics of Indian culture, why Indians always wanted to stay in a community or grow in a community, we always had joint families because nobody wanted to be alone. I think the nuclear family is a Western culture that has come to India now. Of course, we have moved cities due to work, and people are growing in their career. But deep down inside, the innate need of humans. I'm sure you've seen there's this scene in Life of Pi where they say that humans can live without anything, but not without a companion.
Right.
Because we humans are community driven people. We are not supposed to live alone. And this idea of living alone is a very low, I mean,
like a very Western concept.
I won't say that it's a Western concept. I think it's just a disadvantage of technology and city life. I don't think people in rural India are.
I think it's how the world has evolved into today.
Yeah.
It makes you sort of lonely because, everyone's in that rat race. And because of what you just said, it just reminded me of this speech that Brad Pitt gave. I think it was the Oscars, where he said that, like God asked man, is the journey more important or the destination? And the man replied, it's neither. It's the partner you're with.
It's the company.
Because it's a company. It's like, 99% of your happiness comes from the company you're with. And if you're alone, I mean, the struggle is bigger, the loneliness is bigger. You can reach the most highest epitome of success, but that loneliness will still stick to you. I think 98% of billionaires are depressed.
I feel that loneliness is one of the biggest mental health disorder. If you have a sound mental health, you'll never want to be lonely.
But is this something that you've personally suffered with also during your time?
Honestly, I never. I think the reason I wanted to be in Calcutta is because I never wanted to be lonely. I think one lifetime is not enough to live with the people who really matter to you.
Right.
I just love the fact that I can wake up every morning and I see my mom making a cup of tea for my dad and my dad reading the newspaper and cracking like 10 silly jokes on me, me and my sister planning out where to go, what to eat. I think that is much more important for me than any name, fame, success. And life is just that much, We have like 70, 80, if you're lucky, 90 years, out of which I think most of us have lived half of our good life. Even in that half of our good life, how much happiness or how much happy we have been is what determines our success. You can never count your success by how much money is in your bank account.
Yeah. I think that's something that we all fall prey to. I think because I don't know why, like I might be wrong, but I think most people, especially millennials, have been conditioned with that mindset, at least while growing up in school and college, being from a business Marwadi family or someone who wanted to be an entrepreneur. We've always been conditioned with that mindset that
But you'll be
if you have
surprised
this
to
much money, then you can do this.
But you'll be surprised to know how Gen Z is aware of mental health. I think Gen Z today, they know about mental health more than any
Millennial. Sorry.
and I think the fact so I was actually doing this event with Tinder. We were going to a couple of cities and we were talking about
I saw that.
yeah, we were talking about the dating culture of that city, and you will be surprised how Gen Z matches with people who are aware of their mental health, who are into therapy, who know what is their issues, who are dealing with it, who are taking counseling, therapy. So I mean, why is that? Because today people like us are talking so much about it that they don't want to suffer from the rejections that we have. And I think it's wonderful. I mean, it is amazing that people, younger generation today, have this knowledge. They don't want to be lonely. So they even match with people for going for a movie.
Yeah, no, these words have come up. Situationship,
Yeah.
breadcrumbing.
Yeah. But people are more aware of it.
Yeah.
Today, I know for a fact that a Gen Z will not be wanting to settle for breadcrumbs, which our generation might have, because we were not aware of it. But, coming back to what I was talking, that loneliness. See, I feel that if you are a 21, 22-year-old and you are lonely, it's okay because you can seek help. There is enough help. You can go for professional counseling, therapy. But if you're 40-year-old and if you're still unaware, then that's a problem.
Right.
Because there is enough help available in our society now. There is enough conversation around therapy, and it's okay to be in therapy. You don't go to therapy because you're mad. You go to therapy because you don't want to end up being mad.
Right.
So I think this awareness is what is lacking in our generation.
But I still think that even in therapy, because, I also went to Charvi since the last 6-7
Our
years.
therapist.
Yeah, therapist. And I think it's very important to take that first step. Like where you want to accept that I need therapy.
Yeah.
Because most people who actually need therapy don't go to therapy.
Yeah. I think also for what I've seen mostly around my circle, I've seen most of my male friends refusing to go to therapy because there's a certain sense of ego or male ego attached to it that, I'm a man, I don't need therapy. But that's also because men in our society are brought up in a way that they are convinced since growing up that you are a boy, you can't cry, you can't do this. I think our society is has been more cruel to boys. I think girls still, girls can cry it off. We can talk to other girls and, we can get it away with. But even as boys, you see, boys will never tell another boy. I mean, if you look at a dad, like fathers are never supposed to cry. They're always supposed to provide. They're never allowed to cry. I don't know, probably so many times my father must have provided me the most important or most expensive stuff, and he might be struggling. I never got to know about it, but I wouldn't want my child to go through that.
Oh, I'm a complete male rights activist, and because I just like to differ with you in one place where I feel that it's not male ego, it's male inhibition. It's because they feel like...
I think it's the same thing we are talking about. You're just being kinder.
Yeah, maybe. Like I feel like it's sort of an inhibition where they feel like, how will people judge me?
Yeah.
If I go, like, what will people say if they find out that, I'm going to therapy? Will they think that I'm too vulnerable, or will they think... Because, testosterone is what flows inside a man's body, and they are preoccupied, because I feel like, if you actually see statistics, 80% of all suicides in the country are men.
Absolutely.
Most depressed people are men who don't have an outlet to speak. So I do feel like, and especially for the audiences who are listening, like, it does not matter if you're a man, like, you need to go out there and, talk to someone about it.
Absolutely. I know that the world will be a kinder place if all of us just have people to talk to. Doesn't have to be a professional therapist. It could be anybody, your mom, dad, your sister, brother, your friends. Have one person in your life who you can just talk to without being judged. That is very important. I think therapy has always existed all our lives. Our mothers have cried to their mothers and we have cried to our mothers. But I think for men also, it should be generalized. And it's okay, Don't lose the things that you love because you can't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes us lonely, because we let go of the things we love because we can't be vulnerable.
Yeah, because especially, because men do get together, they do meet, they do talk, but they talk about the fun stuff. It's over a drink,
Yeah.
or whether they're smoking or smoking up. And like, it's a completely different kind of conversation.
If you have seen Lapata Ladies, there's
Yes,
this
I
one
have.
scene in Lapata Ladies. I think Lapata Ladies was such a amazing movie in so many ways. There's so many subtle, messages that movie passed. There was the scene where the guy Deepak, he's sitting with his friends and he's drinking and he's crying, and his friends are like, "Kya ro raha hai? Bhabhi gum gayi to gum gayi. You get married to someone else." I think the fact that somebody is not saying theek hai, tu ro raha hai, tu ro le. But there was another friend who was saying it's okay, samajhne ki koshish. I think that's what is very important.
Yeah.
For men, that kind of a circle where people allow you to cry and not say that, oh, you're a man, you can't cry. I think that's very important in today's society, because in our society, I think gone are those days when men were just supposed to be like, oh, I can't be like this. It will be easier, kinder. They'll have better relationship if they're more vulnerable.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. But like, just coming back to the mental health loop, I would love to know your opinion on anxiety and anxiousness, because that's become such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I recently had a conversation with a therapist in my podcast, and she said something very, like, I just asked her, is the Gen Z more prone to being anxious? She just said that, different people had different ways to deal with it. Right? Like, what are your views on anxiety or being very overwhelmed?
I have always been very vocal about, me dealing with very high functioning anxiety. I think during COVID, I realized that it had reached a disorder state. Before that, I always thought, okay, I was just a scared person maybe. But I think during COVID, I realized it was more like a disorder. I have been under medication, and then I reached out to therapy. That's when I, started therapy. And a year and a half later, I kind of recovered completely from there, to an extent where now I am, able to process very high functioning stress situations also. But so when in my journey of dealing with anxiety, I realized that people like me who have been in very high achieving or very high stressful platforms all our life, since I was 18, I have only been competing. This innate requirement to be competing, whether it's a pageant, whether it's it's at work or anywhere. I think when I'm not in a platform like that, I start feeling jittery because I don't know what to do. So it was a long journey for me to understand that I was a highly anxious person, and to navigate it, and to take proper help, medical help and even counseling help, and kind of recover from there, and realize that so my condition was not something that I could recover by just talking. I lost a very close friend, and I think that kind of triggered a panic or a phobia space in my life, which I have spoken about on a lot of platform also. And that's when I realized that high functioning anxiety or depression, this needs proper medical care. It is not something you can just, sadness is very different from depression, and stress is very different from anxiety. So to understand when it reaches a medical, when you need medical help is very important, not only for the person dealing with it, but for family and friends who are like the primary caregivers also. For them to understand this and to be able to provide the right help is very important. And it's been so many years that I kind of continue to work around mental health space, is only because I want people to know that it doesn't matter. You could be the most successful person, but you could be battling with anxiety and depression. And it's like the fever and cough and cold of physical health.
Yeah.
So people don't understand that it's just very basic. It needs help.
Right. No, there's something that you just said, and I wanted to ask. It's a slightly medical question. I mean, you said you were on and off medications, and just out of personal curiosity, I want to know. I mean, do you feel like, was it the medicines that helped you, like to a certain level, or was it everything else?
Absolutely. I think so. I was consulting with my doctor, and very often, so when I started my medication, I would eventually stop it by myself, thinking that, oh, I can just get over with it, I don't need this support, whatever taboo we have. And then one day my doctor told me that, why will I not take you off medication if you can go off medication? And then he sat me down and he said that, I've spent years studying psychiatry, I've spent years studying mental health, and this is just going to make your life better. Why do you want to struggle when your life can be better? So I told him that it probably might make me dependent, might make me weak. And then he said that not being on medication is making your life more difficult. So when you have fever, do you want to get better on your own and still be at work? No, right? So why will you not want to be at work, when you are anxious? And especially when it's a medical, it needs medical attention. And my parents were very supportive of me, getting into proper treatment. And I remember the day I came off medication and I told him that, can you just write it for me? Maybe if something happens and all, I can probably. And that's when my doctor said that you don't need it anymore. Why would you want to take it now when you don't need it? So I realized how much of confusion and miscommunication we have around medication.
Right.
Especially with, mental health or psychiatry medication. And within a year, I was off medication, but I also realized that whole, the whole trauma or the taboo of if I get on medication, I won't be ever able to do anything on my own. That is something so misleading. And I think most of the people don't understand that. And that's why I like to talk about it, because I feel if anybody can be, if my journey can help anybody, I think that would be a win for me.
No, there is a big stigma around medication, because I think the whole concept of medication comes from, the stigma of medication comes from cheating. They feel like you're cheating something. There is this whole big perception of, and this is something I fight with a lot of people in my life all the time, is that, this is not natural. I said, you're not living in a natural world.
Yeah.
Every single food item that you're eating is genetically modified. The air that you're
absolutely
inhaling is polluted. If you're put in an ecosystem which is polluted, you need external supplements to make your ecosystem clean.
Absolutely. In fact, I have a very funny story to share around this. I remember, so during the menstruation phase, I think women experience more anxiety. So I remember going to my doctor and saying, right before my periods, I get more anxious, doctor. Can you give me some pill? And my doctor sat me down and said that, that's how nature is. Nature is not very kind to women. And if you want to handle that anxiety with medication, then it's a problem.
Right.
That's something you can deal with on your own. So that's when I understood that, our doctors know better. Sometimes you have to trust them. And it's very important to find somebody who you can trust and who can help you, with your physical or mental health journey.
But what I really also want to ask is the other side of medicines, which is, there was this study, and it's something that's seeped into my head for a very long time, which is, they say that anxiety becomes sort of an addiction, in the sense that you're addicted to anxiety because you start thriving in anxiety.
Absolutely.
And, the only way to come out of addiction is to start believing in something which is higher than yourself, right? It could be different things for different people. But 80% of the people who've actually come out of addiction say that they've started believing in a higher purpose or in God, or, Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a church-based system where, people actually go to church and start believing in something way more higher than themselves. Was there a spiritual or godly aspect to your growth in terms of mental health, where you've started believing in something which is higher than yourself?
Absolutely. I think when you said this, I was literally trying to connect the dots. In fact, I have always been very spiritual. Uh, I've never been really religious, but I've always been very spiritual. I've always believed that there is a higher power above us who's making the things, who's making us do the things. And, I feel that if a seed, if you see a seed and it falls on a ground, nothing happens to that seed. But if it falls on a soil and there is water and sunlight, there's suddenly a plant that grows. So what is that? What is that something that puts that life in it? I feel that there is a higher power, right, who puts that life in it.
100%.
And I have been, for me, I've always believed that there is a higher power that works above us. And I think that's how I have always navigated all my life decisions, that if it happens, it's good. If it doesn't happen, there is a higher power.
It's something that we see in our daily lives. Like if I'm meeting you, if I get a good vibe, or a bad vibe, that is an exchange of energy that you feel, because I cannot know someone and hate them.
Absolutely.
Because it might give me bad vibes inside. And I think that presence of energy in itself is the existence of, I don't have, again, like I'm not a religious person. I don't have an idol worship of God as per se, but that energy exchange.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute godly power.
Absolutely. And I think in the last 6-7 years, I have spiritually grown as a person. I have always been a big follower of Ma Kali, because growing up, I've seen my dad worship Ma Kali, my mom worship Ma Kali, and Ma Durga, because that's what I've seen growing up. But 6-7 years back, I started doing a lot of spiritual travel. So I went to Ajmer Sharif. I went to Salasar Balaji, I went to Kamakhya, Tirupati, I went to even Golden Temple. And it was not because it was a religious...
no, I get that.
It was just to kind of understand, that spiritual drive. And actually comes when you witness grief also.
Yeah.
Grief is an emotion that leads you to believe that there is a higher power who can help you feel better. Most of the time, we don't reach till that stage. Before that, only we try to kind of cover it up with something else, like probably smoking, drinking, partying. But if you reach till that stage of, which is like the stage before acceptance.
Yeah.
So that's when I realized that, and that's the time when I started reading a lot about spirituality. And I have always been somebody who's believed in manifestation, dreaming of the impossible, making it happen. But my spiritual journey, honestly, as you said, happened after my struggle with mental health.
No, that's amazing advice to all the people also who are listening, because I know we've covered grief, I know we've covered anxiety, and I know we've covered medication. And I think this has been such a useful information, because coming from a non-doctor, it's more believable, because, sometimes we fall prey that, when a doctor says it or a psychiatrist says it, there must be some ulterior motive behind it. But when it comes from someone like you, who's been very public about this, who's, put herself out there, even though it is seen as a slight stigma even now.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful way, and I think the audiences can take a lot.
And honestly, I also think that another 2 things that really helped me was working out. Being at the gym, and I really owe a lot of my fitness experience to Rono. Rono is somebody who's really changed my idea of fitness. I remember first walking into Endorphins, and Rono, I was working out, and then Rono takes me to a corner and he's like, Usho, you don't work out to be fit. You only work out because you want to look good. And I was like, what do you mean? I work out because I want to be fittest person in the gym. He's like, no. So I think it's very important to find the right people in your journey. Yeah. I think for me, that has been very important. I always wanted to surround myself with people who I can learn from. Right. And whether it's my spiritual journey, mental health journey, fitness journey, or even in career, professionally, I've always sought knowledge. Right. And I feel that my anxiety has been a blessing for me.
It's uncanny how much I resonate with you, especially with Rono, because he did exactly that for me as well. Yeah. He completely changed my Perception
I
of
remember the
fitness.
first time I went to Ronu and said that, Ronu, I've not been feeling well and, things have not been going right and I want to do this and I want to do that. And Ronu's like, are you seeing somebody? And I said, no, it's been few years. I've not been seeing anybody. He's like, Ushu, I mean, are you seeing a therapist? So I think it's very important in your journey, you find the right people who can guide you the right way. And it is very important who you surround yourself with.
No, absolutely.
It's loneliness, being alone. All of this is just a byproduct of not being self-aware and surrounding yourself with people who don't want you to be happy.
Right.
It's very important to find the right people who inspire you, who guide you, who protect you. I think that's your tribe. And they love you, they love you. Even if things go wrong, they'll come around, because people who are your tribe, who want good for you, will always be there to support you. And these are the people you get inspired from.
Right.
If your circle isn't inspiring you, if the people you are wanting to reach out to, it's not inspiring you, you are in the wrong circle.
Right. I think that's superb advice. But that's also superpower. I feel like, like just to have that kind of tribe around you, I feel is so difficult nowadays because of the way perceptions are being changed. But I do agree with you.
I feel that again, I'm quoting a film here in Rockstar, that song Kun Faya Kun. In that song, when he's sitting in the masjid and he's singing, there is a line which says that जब कहीं पे भी कुछ नहीं था वही था जो है तुझ में समाया जो है मुझ में समाया. So the God is in you is the God in me, and when there's nothing in this world, the God in me will still stay, which is also the God in you. So I feel whenever you are ready, the right support, the right mentor will appear in front of you. You have to be ready for it.
Right.
When you say that, okay, we are not lucky to find the right mentor or the right tribe, I disagree. I feel if you seek your tribe, they will come to you.
That's very wonderfully put, and an advice a lot of people would give me. For all of you guys who just saw this segment on mental health, I think that there's a lot of value you can take from this. And Ushoshi's short film, Unbroken, is out there. Please watch it and share it with your friends. It's a beautiful and amazing film.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so Shoshi, now we come to the fun segment, which is a rapid fire round. I'm no
Lovely.
Karan Johar, but I will still try. Right?
Excited.
Okay. So I have quick questions for you. It's not exactly one word answers. You can take your time because it's a podcast. Right? Favorite top 3 movies?
So many films. Number 1, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, because I'm a huge Shah Rukh Khan fan. The Opur Shongshar Pothir Pachali, the entire 3-film series, and The Pursuit of Happiness. I think that film, The Pursuit of Happiness, is something that I can go back and watch so many times and still feel like, it just uplifts you. And one of my most favorite series that I've loved watching over the years is Friends.
Right.
I mean, Friends is like my
Go-to.
My
I
go-to.
sleep with it.
Yeah. I literally I can watch Friends over and over and over again.
Okay. Top 3 books that you would recommend. I'll make this easier for you. Spiritual books, not spiritual, like something that you can take advice from. I don't mean fiction.
So one of the books that I've always loved, I continue to read, is The Alchemist. I think that's a book if you're a dreamer, if you are somebody who believes in the magic of the universe, who believes that there is a reason why you are here and there is a purpose, and you are like me who likes to connect the dots, then I think The Alchemist is a book you should definitely read. I remember there's this word in Alchemist which says maktub, that it's all written.
Oh, I saw that on your WhatsApp status.
Yes, it's all written. And another book that I would ask people to read is the book called The Attached. It talks about human relationships and how we attach to different people. It will just help you understand relationships better. It is a book that talks about how our childhood is reflected in our attachment patterns in our adult life. That's one book I really think everybody should read. And The third book, which is not a spiritual book, but a book that was one of the first few books that I was gifted by my grandfather, was The Wings of Fire by APJ Abdul Kalam. I think that's a book that I keep revisiting.
Yeah, I read that one.
Yeah, and there are a lot of books that I would like to recommend. I mean, books are something you cannot. It's not fair, guys. You can't ask me what
fair
is
enough.
a fair.
Fair
What is
enough.
my
But those are
favorite book?
good 3 recommendations. Mine would have been Harry Potter 5, 6, 7. Okay, top 3 travel destinations.
Oh, I think I would like the world to come and explore Bengal. Bengal has so much to offer in terms of travel. We have history, we have hills, we have Sundarban, which is the UNESCO heritage, and then we have Durga Puja. I think the whole world should come to Bengal and visit Bengal.
I think the whole world already comes to Bengal. But no, go ahead. Second
No,
and
it's
third.
definitely one of my favorite places to travel because that's what I love to do when I'm free. Uh, uh, I love Goa. I think Goa really teaches you to be yourself. You can just wear anything, say anything, eat anything, be anyone, and there's no
Absolutely
judgment.
go to place.
So I think Goa is one of my favorite travel destination. And internationally, there's this one place which I've always loved, and the first time I visited, I fell in love, is Seychelles. It is so beautiful. That island is so beautiful. I think Maldives and Mauritius people love to go, but Seychelles is just one of the most
Wow.
beautiful places.
Okay, I have one more. That's the most embarrassing moment in your life. This is a tough one.
I definitely know the most embarrassing moment in my life. So I was doing a fashion show once in Bhubaneswar. I still remember. And I come out of the on the stage, and I walk till the front head ramp, and I pose. And while turning, I don't know what happened. I fell flat on my face. Now I had to get up, which was not embarrassing. But I get up and I see the lady sitting in front of me laughing, fallen off the chair. And that was still not the most embarrassing. I went back to the dinner and she spotted me. She was like, "Oh, that model who fell on the ramp." I think that was the most hilarious and most embarrassing moment of being on ramp. But I think everything else is okay.
Ushoshi, thank you so much for coming.
No,
I
thank
think
you.
this was such a lovely conversation, especially around the mental health part.
Thank
I
you
think
so much.
I'm going to take that as a separate clip and put it out. But thank you so much for coming.
No,
It's
thank
been
you for
lovely
having me.
you.
It was so exciting and interesting. I was also very bored of talking about Miss India all the time. I was thinking that I need to achieve few more things now because I'm only bored about talking about Miss India. I'm sure people are bored of listening to it also.
But I think you are such a beautiful place in your life where you're so self-aware, where you know what you want. I think that's one of the best places to
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. I done well. Yeah, but I think all of us have our misses and our wins, and
be. Right.
I think we all keep failing, falling. But I think in my life, I'm at a place where I don't criticize myself for my failures too much. I'm like, "Okay, it's okay. We gave it a try. Let's move on." And in my head, I'm like, "Okay, I only have like 30, 40 more years. I don't want to be sad for too long."
I think that's a superpower.
Yeah, I just want to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wish you all the best, Ushoshi.
Thank you so much.
For
I
coming.
wish you guys also amazing success in the podcast world and keep bringing amazing people, share more stories because at the end of the day, we all need to be inspired by each other's journey. So all the best.
Thank you so much. Now, before we end, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Decode Age. Decode Age is India's first longevity research company aiming to increase the health span of people. The supplements and tests are based on the latest scientific breakthroughs in the field of longevity and aging science. So, supplements they provide target the biological mechanisms that cause aging. For example, as we age, then NAD plus levels in our body decline, leading to mitochondrial dysfunction and genomic instability. Two main reasons for biological aging. And by supplementing with Decode Age's NMN, one can replenish the energy levels in the body and tackle aging at a cellular level. Now, there are numerous clinical trials and experiments indicating that NMN increases the health span of individuals who consume it. I take it myself and it feels great. Apart from NMN, Decode Age offers other longevity supplements like spermidine, AKG, fisetin, and transresveratrol. If you want to start your healthy aging journey, then Decode Age is the place to be. Do visit decodeage.com and use my coupon code Anant to get a discount.